Thank you so much, Boholo. My name is Mantate Mhlotswa. And I'm a 25-year-old Zimbabwean woman, born, raised Kobulawayo, and I live, work in Harare. So I'm a lot of things. I think at the top of it all, I stand for women. Anything that affects, the dignity and the lifestyle of women and young girls and young people in general. That's where my heart is. So passion is just getting women and young people contributing to processes that define their everyday lives. So I was raised Gobulai, like I said, and I was born in Kulumane. That's where also I went to primary school. My primary school is Eskombe Primary School. And so that's where I grew up. Really, my whole life was in Kulumane, and I think growing up in a family where we were not well off. I was raised by my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. So you're not well off. So there's certain things you look around, see big houses, you see a certain lifestyle that other people have, and it's stuff that you want, but you can't have. So it almost becomes a goal to say, I want this for myself and for my, my siblings, for my family and stuff like that. Then I went to Evelyn High School, which is like an upgrade from the hood. I went to Evelyn High School for my Form 1 to 4, and it was a huge struggle, because you're transitioning from a primary school and meeting those kids from better schools. They speak better English, they're better in a lot of ways, and you're coming in, you don't get that pocket money, you don't get certain things, but you're in a good school. I think for me, like I said, growing up, when you're seeing a certain life and you're like, I want this, and you're very much aware of what happens when you do certain things and lose track of where you're going. So like there was a lot of things I told myself, okay, I'm seeing a lot of young girls getting pregnant before they finish school. I don't want that, because it puts a stop to your life as a young girl, like you're having to raise a child. Sometimes you're forced to go and stay with this guy who's also not working. So there's certain things I was saying that I said I don't want to go through that. So when I went to school and there was so much going on, the one thing I've always told myself is whichever space I take up, God wants me to be there, so I'm good enough for that space. It doesn't matter where I'm coming from. So I remember when I was at Evelyn, it didn't show like you're coming from the ghetto, because I loved reading novels a lot. So the English naturally kind of improved. And I think that's the sad thing about our society. English kind of is a measure of what you know, or your so-called intelligence sometimes. So you're getting to a space where you're developing your ability to articulate issues. You're joining those clubs where, debate, public speaking, and people are using this language and you're getting accustomed to it. So I think with time, you just kind of fit into that space. And the difference is maybe sometimes for those that are coming from backgrounds that are clearly saying no, you have that extra push, so you fight even harder. So I think that was me. I needed to keep rising. So that was the attitude, But I think for me, what helped me pull through was knowing who I was. And I had the privilege of being smart as well, because I think that's the other thing. I was smart at school, and I had, I've always been a curious person. I go to teachers and say, I want to participate in this. How do I do this? Like, I was that child who went the extra mile. So I think throughout the whole process, I knew where I wanted to go. And there's certain things that I then stayed away from that would kind of derail me in a way. So I think that kind of helped, knowing who you are in a space where it's easy to get, caught up in a lot of things. And the crazy thing, I'm actually wearing a Yale t-shirt. Don't know how it happened today, but I remember my first day because I had gone to USA for the campaign school at Yale University. So it's a program where women from different spaces come together to learn about political campaigns, how to manage campaigns, how to run effective political campaigns. So I remember that I was one of 80 women, and I was the only one from Africa. And the first day with the Yale Law School, and when I stood outside that building, for me, I remember posting on Facebook that what makes me so happy and overwhelmed is the idea that this is not just Mantate standing in the United States at Yale Law School doing this kind of program. It's about every young person that had dreams like me. It's like I'm standing with everyone from the hood, with everyone from the city, from the continent. I think for me, that was like the most inspiring moment where you are standing in the gap for young women that have dreams that don't make sense. Because I can tell you, growing up, we had dreams, we wanted to do Oxford, Harvard, all this. We never thought those things happen to us who don't have the means to get there. So that was like the most inspirational moment. And I remember throughout the whole period, interacting with women. Some of them are like elected members, like they're in the legislature in the USA. Some are senators. Some have they'll tell you I worked for Obama, I ran the campaign, like I was part of the campaign team for Hillary Clinton, and you're like, these are big names. So it's one of those things where every moment of that time, I felt like I was there for a reason. I deserved to be there, and it was up to me to actually take advantage of that space, not just for myself, but for every other young woman who hasn't yet got that kind of opportunity. I think the initial crisis of politics in Zimbabwe and Africa as a continent is we have a generation of old people that, thank God, helped to fight for independent countries, right? We got our liberation, which is amazing. They played a huge role. I think it's, big up, respect for that. But I think the crisis we have is they have not divorced themselves from the sense of entitlement that just because you led Zimbabwe to independence, you're the only one that understands just how much the power means or what it takes to continue sustaining this so-called liberation, right? So I think that's where the initial crisis is. So as a young woman, it's almost like because you were not there in 1980, you have not placed to aspire for certain positions, And I think the other challenge now is that when young women then start coming up, it's not even just young women, young people in general, when you start coming in and say you want to be president, all those dreams that young people have, it's almost like you're threatening those guys. It's like you're wanting to take away from them something that belongs to them. It doesn't. So I think the crisis that we have is a crisis where the elders have not allowed themselves to understand that they had a duty, an obligation at some point they gave of themselves, which is amazing. They gave their lives. Some of them suffered in big ways and stuff like that. It's okay. We appreciate that. But we need to come to a level where we accept that after they got us liberation, there are people that helped to build the Zimbabwe that we have today. There are young people today that have the energy. We've got the innovation. We've got the creative ideas. We have the spirit that can put our country forward. But every time we rise to say this is not okay, it's not allowing us to bloom as young people. I have a lot of quotes in my head. But there's one that says that when things are left as they are, they tend to get worse. So my issue is when we decide that out of our fear, we will not speak. That's what they want. So when you're silent, that's exactly what you're giving the system what it wants. But the reason why we even got liberated at some point is because there's certain people who stood against guns. They had nothing at some point, but they stood up in their fear and they spoke truth. They demanded something better for them. I think we're all entitled to a life that's dignifying us. So when that life, you're not getting that life because someone is choosing to be selfish, I think it's our responsibility as well to make a demand for it. And like you're rightfully saying that there's a lot of young women around it, especially women. That's the thing about politics in Africa and in Zim, where when it comes to women, there's that extra layer of sexual violation. When they want to prove to a point to women or to politicians in general, they rape a woman. They rape the child of that politician that's making trouble for them. So it's almost like we're consistently the target for attacks. And all those times it attacks us physically. So when they attack you physically, you always that reference, the girl that got raped because she was speaking too much. So it kind of makes those other girls not want to come in because politics is too aggressive. They don't want to be victims and things like that. But like I was saying that, I honestly have nothing to lose. Like I have nothing to gain by being silent. I have nothing to lose by speaking. So I'm just like, I'll just do what I can while I can do it. Yeah, I think the first thing that I'd want to say is I'm sorry to every young girl in Zim. Like, gets me emotional. I think it's unfortunate that we're born in a continent and in a country that has no respect for women, to start with. Just being a girl is a struggle in this country. It's the basic social experiences every day when you're walking in the streets. You don't get a breath because you're Rasta, you're yellow, you're skinny, you've got the assets, it's like the way you're treated. First, before you're a human being, you're a woman. And it's a struggle being that. Number two, in politics, we see our leaders in parliament disrespecting women. You see big names in parliament disrespecting women, and you wonder what kind of respect to expect from an ordinary Zimbabwean. So I'm just apologizing to every other girl that unfortunately we're born into a country that treats us like this. But then on the other hand as well, beyond just being sorry, I also want to remind you that if we don't do something about this, it becomes a cycle. We grow old, we continue complaining about the system, and then a generation of younger girls come in again, go through the same thing. It's like, it's been like this for years. And that's why, like, every day I'm just there, like, it doesn't matter how many people's lives I change. Every one life matters. And if Mantate and 3 million other young women in Zimbabwe choose to do something, like if we choose to change lives, how many more people can we change? So I think it's that encouragement to every young girl, every young person to say, we can do it. It's not easy, but every day we're given the opportunities. Let's take advantage of that. And let's also not grow into these monsters we're fighting every day, because that's the danger that's there, that when people fight for a country, get independence, even in the work that we're doing, fighting for women's rights and stuff, it's easy to think you own the system because you fought for this. When there are laws that are made because of what you're fighting for, you think somehow, you own, people need to acknowledge you for your role in this. But that's the same system that makes these guys feel entitled. So we need to consistently work on ourselves and say, we can't be selfish like those people. We can't be heartless. We need to continue finding ways of being humans, because I think that's one thing that we lack.